We are looking ready. All right, Madam Chair, we are getting your meeting started. Waiting for all of your attendees to populate through the system, so it'll be just a second. And you can call your meeting to order whenever you would like.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Monday, October 5th meeting of the Community Homeless Advisory Board. We're going to start with the first order of business, the Pledge of Allegiance, and I got a flag up on my screen here, so if we're all stand for the pledge. And let's see, Miss Commissioner Berthbigler, how about you lead us in the pledge? You're on mute. Okay, there you
go. Okay, I will. Good morning, everyone. Join me in the pledge to the greatest country in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I concur. It is the greatest. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair, roll call for the Community Homelessness Advisory Board for today, October 5th. Jardin.
Present.
Delgado.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Dare.
Here.
Berthbigler.
Here.
And Lucy is absent at this time.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move into item 3. This is public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for just any general public comment. Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, it should be noted we received no general public comment that was received prior to 4 p.m. on Friday, the business day before the meeting. It will be noted we did receive multiple comments that will be lodged into general closing public comment as they were received after 4 p.m. So I will note those when we get to that section of your agenda, but to reiterate, no general public comment today.
Thank you very much. And those public comments, were those received via voicemail or email?
They were written email or online public comment forms, of which have been submitted to the council, excuse me, the committee, and are part of the record. We received no voicemails.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to confirm that what we had received in writing was all that we had. So thank you. Correct. I did receive those and read them. Item 4, moving on to approval of the agenda. May I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 5, the approval of the agenda, which was distributed by Cynthia.
Move to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 6, board update on the special Reno City Council meeting. Arlo, this was a great, I think 3 or 4 hour meeting that we had. Lots of information. Looking forward to your update. Mr. Stockham, I don't see your face.
Madam Chair, I am moving over Arlo as a panelist to give you an update. Should also be noted, we do have Spark City Manager Neil Kreutz available for additional questions throughout the day if you should need him.
Thank you. All right, Arlo, it's all yours.
Good morning, board members. Hope you had a great weekend. We have a fairly quick update for you today on the special meeting the City Council hosted on community homelessness. As Councilwoman Jardin mentioned, it was a pretty lengthy discussion. The council reviewed the information this board has been working on involving sheltering and cost sharing arrangements in particular. Spent some time discussing our priorities for our Housing and Neighborhood Development Division. Had a great presentation and discussion from Dana Searcy revolving around the Built for Zero initiative and a lot of support for that program. Also our Clean and Safe program. And finally, the council approved the resolution of support for the Governor's Bowl as the homeless center site. I guess a couple basic takeaways that I took from that meeting is the Reno City Council is very interested in enhancing our coordination between the 3 agencies and also nonprofits as it relates to river cleanup efforts and also the provision of social services to the people experiencing homelessness. So do want to emphasize that the more we can coordinate, the better. Secondly, the council voiced a priority to establish and develop a super shelter site was the term used, but really a larger site for homeless sheltering and more of a full campus that would provide these support services and transitional housing in proximity as well. As this board knows, we've been working pretty hard to establish such a site for a number of months now. Other priority is clean and safe, in particular the river corridor. A lot of concerns have been raised in Reno about homeless encampments and the environmental impacts and also safety concerns associated with that. So we are renewing our efforts or continuing, enhancing our efforts towards river cleanup. And that river corridor, and in particular the downtown portions of the river corridor, are a high priority for that. I know our staff has had some follow-up with Dana and county staff to that end, and also with Grant Denton and his efforts. But we will be kind of continuing and enhancing our river cleanup efforts. And then the provision of services being very, very important and a high priority to council. In terms of the funding, the Reno Council is comfortable for this coming year, basically being the lead agency for the men's shelter. But we do definitely want to work towards a transition for the county to be more of a leadership role. Now that the Our Place campus is built and occupied and operational, that's great. We could really use some additional assistance on the no barrier shelter, the men's shelter, and the ongoing challenges we've had. So that's really my brief overview. Happy to answer any questions. Councilwoman Jordan or Delgado, would you like to add anything to that?
Councilman Delgado?
Not from mine. I think you did a great job summarizing all that. I think, of course, not adding the emotional conversations in terms of in the hopes from everyone else about how involved everybody wants to be to see some changes and how enthusiastic they are to partner with, of course, our local jurisdictions. But so that was a great summary. Thank you all.
Yeah, and I don't know if the other members were able to watch it or not. It was really good, and Dana was inspiring in her presentation. I'll tell you what, at the county, you have a gem there in Dana Searcy for sure. She kind of helped to connect a lot of the dots that our community has been yearning for, and frankly, you know, I think every jurisdiction has been kind of wanting is who is that facilitator that can help break down some of the silos and, you know, really start to bring the picture as a region together and how we get there. And that's what the council is really focused on, is how we work together on this and accomplish what we want, while recognizing that it's a growing issue and not just in Reno, but across the entire United States, that homelessness has increased some 74% during the COVID crisis. And I know our community is certainly experiencing it. Our vulnerable population is suffering through it, and we are trying to address it. And we have to address it together. Singly, we're not going to do it. And frankly, when I say together, that includes the private sector in a significant way. And I know Councilman Dare has been really supportive in trying to get some of the faith-based communities to play a larger role. And frankly, I know they want to, and I just feel like we haven't done a good job of looping them in and where they can. So any of the members have any questions? Commissioner Burke-Bigler, Member Burke-Bigler. I'm not really sure what title I give everybody on member. Commissioner Burke-Bigler, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, Marshall will do it. Don't need a title. So I have recently had the pleasure of driving on 4th Street from from Keystone to McCarran, and I'm amazed at how the homeless population has grown extensively there along the railroad tracks. It's probably been 3 or 4 weeks since I drove that street, because it's not a direction I normally go. I know that at one point I talked with the sheriff, and the sheriff said, yeah, he's aware of it. And he had talked with your sheriff or with your police captain and police chief, and they were working on trying to get something done. But it seems to me like, in fact, there's more people there now. Arlo, do you know what they're doing? And is there something we need to step in? What do we need to do?
We've had a number of ongoing, a lot of ongoing work in that location. And it seems like as quickly as we can clean things up, it reemerges. So it's one of several challenge areas, the river corridor being another. We do have additional actions scheduled, but at the end of the day, we could definitely use as much support as we can get from the sheriff and from the county's social service providers. It's simply overwhelming our resources dealing with these encampments, not just along 4th Street, but they really are concentrated in downtown Reno, along the river corridor, and along the 4th Street corridor. So that's one of a number of places. Our team was out there, I think, 3 or 4 times last week, and have more scheduled this week. And it kind of gets to our need for an enhanced shelter.
Right, it does,
definitely. It's really critical that and that's our next agenda item.
Yeah, some of them even have tents and things like that. So it's, yeah. And we need some place for them to go, especially for the winter. Thanks, Arlo.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Dare.
Yes, I just want to say a couple things. I'll agree also on the need. I do believe it's the best place for the county to be at the lead with us all working together. And so I look forward to hopefully seeing them. And I think that eventually that's where they want to be. So I don't think anybody's talking out of line. I think we all see the necessity of how that works. And then as we all come alongside in ways we can. The other thing I'd like to say on the river team, I just want to remind, we talked a while ago, and I still think it's wise. Part of the problem there is depending on what police officer or what group, they might get different answers. And we talked about on the river, especially on the river portion, if we could create more of a unit where we work together. And we've had this conversation and they seem to die somewhere. And truthfully, I don't know where they're dying. I'm not even trying to point a finger, but in the end, it seems, we all know how human nature works. People, this population will quickly learn how we work. And then if they know they can do this over there, they'll go there and there. So we really need to come back and visit that. I know when Sheriff Balaam got in office, he was very interested in helping that. And I know some of that he tried, and then I think it just kind of stalemated somewhere. And so I'd ask that, when you mentioned that kind of collaboration, I think that's important. And then it would be nice to know what nonprofits we're working with, because part of it we can help add to that list. So I don't know if there's a way to get a list out of nonprofits, because one of the biggest things I do believe is I don't believe city or county can afford or do everything that's needed. There's no way. And I think people need to know that. And I think if we try to act like we can, then people will sit back and do nothing. So if we can make sure people are very aware from nonprofits, but also the business sector. I talked to quite a few businesses, and I think a lot of them, maybe not all of them, and I know it's a strange time, but if they knew their finances could potentially go into something that could really bring some answers. Because right now what we're starting to see is it's just rough. It's really hard on businesses. It's hard on our cities. Our public comment we're getting are just people are even safety factors. And so I'd almost add businesses in there and find a way that we can open this up to where businesses can be a part. And I think collaboration is the key. And I think the tone we set is important that allows everybody else to be a part of it. So I like, thank you for your sharing and stuff, but I think those are a couple of key points to really push in. But it'd be really nice to know what nonprofits, when you say nonprofit collaboration, it'd be good to know who's there, and then we can maybe challenge a few more to step in as well and really come apart. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Dare is spot on this. And I, like you, if you look at the programs in our jurisdictions that have been successful in helping to address some of the issues, it was those public-private partnerships, whether it was the dorm on Sage Street or the Reno Works program. Those are largely funded by the public sector and run by organizations that aren't government. So I think that speaks volumes to our need for the private sector. And maybe that's something, maybe Dana or whoever the point person is can coordinate with a business and faith-based community point person. In other words, you know, have there be someone that is the coordinator of those individuals, because we are not going to pull this off alone. And I, like you, am fearful that if people's expectations are that we're going to come in and solve it all, one, we're not, and two, the amount of money that would be required for us to do that would be incredible. It doesn't mean we don't stop putting every resource we can towards it, and we'll continue to do that, but we really do need the private sector. So Arlo, I don't know who the right person is. I don't know if we bring in a Ann Silver or a Mike Kazmierski or both, somebody from the faith-based community, but have a point person that coordinates with those individuals so as not to further burden our personnel necessarily, but to have someone to coordinate with those individuals.
I like that suggestion. I think certainly the Build for Zero team, they have that large matrix, and I think there's well over a dozen different nonprofits and others on that coordinating list. But getting a point person for those groups would be very helpful. On the more immediate kind of river cleanup, we have discussed that on our task force meetings. I see Mr. Kreutz is on the line. Just to be frank, most of these encampments are now in the city of Reno, and we could really use whatever help is available from the others. We're out there daily, and essentially we have our entire staff allocated to this issue, working more than full-time on it, and any additional help we could get would be great. In addition to the 4th Street area that member Burke-Bigler brought up, we also have considerable work going on kind of near the Sparks City boundary. I think Sparks did a pretty aggressive cleanup several weeks ago, and our encampment near the Kitsky Street Bridge really exploded, and in that general area. So we're going to be focusing on that, and it would be real good to have that coordinated with Sparks and truthfully just to get some more people on the ground to help us out there. We're stretched.
Yeah, and I know you and staff have been working tirelessly on these issues, and we need all the help that we can get at the city of Reno. I know we're all rowing in the same direction with the super shelter site at the Governor's Bowl to help, you know, maybe mitigate some of this, moving it from spot to spot to spot. That's not going to come to fruition right away. And we need all the help we can get in the interim. Mayor Lawson, I saw you take your mute off.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Arlo that you get with Neil, because we're having some great success with our Hope team, which is a few cops there, and they're not doing enforcement, as they're doing outreach first. And we're having great success with that. Now, and we also need to bring the sheriff back into this, because at one time, Darren was big on, we're going to set up a task force, Reno Sparks and the sheriff's office. So we're all coordinating the same thing at the same time, and even be able to go through there and do a sweep for service first, not enforcement first. Obviously, putting people in jail doesn't solve any problems at all. So, you know, get the service first approach. But I know that the sheriff is very much up for that. And I know that our new police chief is very much up for it also.
Thank you.
Very good. Congratulations on that new police chief.
Going to be awesome.
Yeah,
very
that'll be
smart young man.
Wow.
He's got his master's, which is incredible in my mind.
That's great. That's great. So however we can expedite that, that's critically important. I think we know the severity of the issues that are occurring. I mean, the fires of late are very, very concerning. for the vulnerable population. And my fear is, particularly with those larger encampments that have combustible materials, which you can see, particularly in the 4th Street one, as it gets colder, I am very fearful that we're going to have some tragedy occur if we aren't more aggressive in helping to address this while we're pursuing the larger site as an alternate protected and secured location for those who won't go into or can't go into a shelter environment. So however we loop the sheriff in and the new Sparks police chief and have that happen sooner rather than later, maybe when we get to board items, we can put it on as a report back at our next meeting as to the progress that was made. Because I do recall that meeting with the sheriff. It's probably been about a year ago, where he seemed very, very interested in kind of leading that effort and understanding it wasn't just one jurisdiction's, it was all of ours. So
No,
okay,
he-
any other?
he's
I'm
very
sorry?
interested and he wants to participate. So I just talked to him about it just recently, and he said he would be getting with Chief Soto and the new Sparks police chief. And so, yeah, I know. I think you're right on, Ed. Your program is working, and I think it's a program we can all look at and
so too.
do good work with.
Fantastic. Okay, Arlo, do you have anything else on that? When do we talk about winter sheltering? Is it under this item?
It's on our next agenda item.
Okay, very good.
7.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, you do not have any public comments specific to this item.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 7, board update discussion on shelter sites and related funding. Arlo.
Okay, much like the last item, I have a short verbal presentation as an update and then a request for help. The update is the governor's bowl process is moving along. We are starting into the appraisal process. We have the land boundary now established. It's a little bit over 5 acres is for sure available outside of the freeway project. So we have the appraiser out there. We're commissioning the appraisal to expedite the process rather than wait for the state appraisal process. So that is beginning today. And we are targeting hopefully having everything complete by early December so we can start on construction of the longer term shelter. We are assuming, given the timeline, that we're going to need to have our interim sheltering arrangement through the month of January. And we've been working with Sparks and Washoe on the cost share, the costs associated with that, and in accordance with the cost share agreement. At the 4th Street tents, we have heat. We had hoped the heat would have been operational Friday. It will be up and running here in the next couple days. There were some safety installations that we need to put in. It's a lot of propane, and heating a tent is less than ideal, but we are going to need to do that for several months here. So that heat should be operational here in the next couple days. What we don't have is overflow space. The 4th Street shelter in the CAC is not yet full, but we certainly anticipate it will fill up as the temperatures get colder. And we are, as mentioned at the last meeting, the city of Reno is pretty tapped out on land that we can use for that purpose. We discussed with Mr. Kreutz and Kate Thomas on Friday different opportunities, and we're really hoping that the county will help us, perhaps at the NAMS campus, perhaps at the DMV site. We really are in need of some overflow sheltering space here for the next few months. So I guess that's my ask, is for some assistance from staff, and in particular county staff, to help with overflow sheltering until we get the permanent shelter constructed.
Arlo, before I turn it over to Member Burke-Bigler for a question, when we put the heaters in, and you are correct, that is not an ideal situation at all. Heating a tent is not efficient, but it's what we have. How many beds did we lose by putting the heaters in?
I don't have a final number. It's fairly minimal. I think about
Okay.
10.
I know that was a concern, so, well, that's encouraging. That's encouraging. Okay, good. Member Burke-Bigler.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I know that unfortunately we have the family facility, it's our place is full right now. And we do have another building that I know Amber Howell has been looking at, trying to get it up and running so we can get the overflow of families, which I think is 22 families or something like that, that are in need of space. And so I know she's working. Have you been meeting with her on that issue, Arlo?
We've been meeting with the manager's office. We discussed that Thursday or Friday. Last week was our last meeting. The overflow needs for men are much, much larger than what we're looking at for families. You know, our best estimate is 200 people, perhaps 250 people will be without shelter this winter and exceed our sheltering capacity. So it really warrants either another temporary structure, tent type structure, or leasing some retail space or something. And we're pretty tapped out of Reno properties to do that on.
Arlo, can you tell me what that translates into in square footage?
Well,
if you have 200 to 250 with spacing requirements, what does that translate into?
It's a little over 100 square foot per person. So that's a 20,000 square foot shelter.
So, okay. And I got word on late last week, there was someone had mentioned, well, go back to the Reno Event Center. And I heard last week that they have volleyball tournaments starting at, I think, the middle of this month for 5 months. So that's not an option. And then the Washington Street, where the women were most recently sheltered, that is in contract for sale. So we really are kind of tapped out at the city of Reno for where, at the DMV site, to be quite honest with you, I understand they're out on November the 2nd. Sure would be great. That, I don't know how many square feet that is, but it's a structure with heat. I don't know what else might be out there, and it's somewhat, you know, centrally located to get us through the winter until the Governor's Bowl site is up and going. But I don't know, open for any suggestions. This is our most emergent need. Mayor Lawson.
So who owns the DMV site? Is that state of Nevada?
Mm-hmm.
So would they be willing to enter into an agreement with us to lease that property? Have we talked to them?
I brought it up at the last RTC meeting. It was kind of in concert, you know, would MDOT and the state be interested in selling it for a permanent shelter site, or at the very least a winter option for overflow? The response that I got was that they had some plans for that site, but I think what Christina Swallow was meaning was for the long term. I think MDOT is wanting that site for their facilities for the long term, but I don't recall getting a solid response on maybe there's an opportunity for, you know, 5 months during the winter. I don't know. Arlo?
Yes, I was just looking. I wonder if we could bring Kate Thomas into this discussion. We've reached out several times, and we do not, as of now, have an agreement from the state to use that property. We're getting possibilities and maybes, and I think there were also some concerns initially from the county about a shelter in that general location, but this is temporary and pretty much of an emergency. I don't know if Kate's been able to make any progress since our last discussion, but that would be ideal if we could get permission. And the other spot is the NAMS campus. Would also be quite ideal for a 4-month period.
And part of the issue too, and I know we put a tent up at Record Street before to help, but with the spacing needs, that's just a small drop in the bucket, and it's really, you know, for staffing and for really having the space, we need a large space, and that's why the DMV site or the NAMS campus really affords some larger scale sheltering opportunities during the winter. So Kate, I saw you went off mute there for a second, and then I yammered in. So Ms. Thomas.
Hi, I hope you can hear me okay. Thanks for the update. Arlo knows we discussed on Friday. One of the things we were waiting on was a little bit more solid information on the timing for the potential super shelter site or whatnot. So now that we have some potential, you know, good information on that, we'll put the press on with the state, since we've got those relationships being on the NAMS campus. on DMV for a temporary site. I think what we know is true for Chair Jardin, who has said that the site is got some plans long term, but I think if we can figure out a way to short term, and I think with security and proximity to the women, we can overcome all of those issues in the short term, so that we can get this as an interim step until we get the longer term, larger solution in place. Arlo, I think when we talked, you had mentioned that the DMV site as a permanent long term is not likely going to be large enough. So I think as long as we can pursue that in the interim as a short term solution, we'd be happy to help with that.
Kate, thank you so much for that. That really is tremendous. That is great. So I guess my question is, are you the point person that's working with NDOT and the state?
I have not been. We have been in very, cursory conversations about DMV. On that, just all of our efforts have been towards getting the women's shelter stood up there at our place. But we certainly have those contacts, and like I said, can step into that. I don't want to step on anyone's toes if there have been discussions already occurring. So why don't Arlo and I coordinate on that ask and figure out the timing and who needs to go forward on what? We can certainly get something going from the board of county commissioners level to, make those connections as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you very, very much. I think it would just be a tragedy if that building sat vacant during the winter while we struggled to find sheltering. So I appreciate, Kate, your efforts on this to help us. That means a lot. So thank you very much. Councilman Dare.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I just want to share. One is I do have a question on staffing for that. I mean, let's say we figure out where to put it. I mean, now we're talking about another large round of costs for just staffing, because I'm sure our staff, we don't have staffing for particular another large shelter like that. And so I don't know the answers, but I'm just saying, man, this is a big lift we're looking at. What a combination with COVID, because we really, I do want to say out loud, if anybody out there, we've made strides, and if COVID wasn't in place this winter, we actually might be at a place where we would not need that. But with COVID, it takes a place that could hold 100, and now you could hold maybe 40 or whatever the number is. And so it changes. So we're behind before we start because of this COVID, which who could have ever anticipated this? And this is part of why we're kind of in these times. And so if you're a business or you're a nonprofit, we're really reaching out. Understand, none of this was ill planning. This is emergency times. And I'd almost say, I know we keep hearing on things like mental health issues and things, and I think that those are crucial elements, but it's really hard when we're still kind of in the survival mode. We're still trying to get through this season of COVID with what that looks like for homelessness. And so we almost have to scale back and just say, we have to make sure people can survive first, just survive. And then, yes, we need to get mental health and all these other things in place. But right now I see for the winter on that. I do want to tell you guys, I mentioned this a little bit to Chair Jardin, and it has to do with one of a program that I'm putting together kind of outside. It represents us, but at the same time it doesn't, because it's to churches. And so I'm hoping to hopefully take 25 to 30 of our homeless and do a program where a church adopts them for the next 5 months and takes them off of the financial, they'll take care of it. They'll take care of them. And there might be some other things that some of the services like food or stuff that we still might need to help with. But when it comes to sheltering, I'm trying to ask churches to each take one person and adopt them. It's a program I've seen we put together in Vegas years and years ago, and it worked. And so I've been reaching out, putting that together. It really it's not a government program. There's nothing to do except we are working with Record Street to find those people who are ready to hopefully take that step forward outside of the shelter. And so that part is, the only thing that we're really doing mixing. But I say that really loud. So if you know some churches that might be interested, please make sure I know about them. It's something that me and some of my church staff and different people we're working on trying to put together. But I do believe that it's going to take the whole community to get through this winter, because looking at what we just said, there's no way we're going to put a tent up for 250 people. That is such a huge lift. and the finances in that. I mean, just think of the finances last time for a tent where I think we got 50 people in there maybe. I mean, I don't even know. It wasn't even that many people, but now that same tent would maybe put 15 people in there. And so it's just not, it just seems a strange thing. So I'm very concerned, but it is something that we really do need everyone kind of at the place. And I think if we have the better plans we have together, the more people will be willing to come alongside us. So I appreciate the work you guys have put into this. And that I do have a question on the Governor's Bowl when we get to that. I know we have a lot of stuff on this agenda, so I don't want to feel like I'm just bouncing around. But on the Governor's Bowl, looking at it, I mean, finances are interesting for everybody. I mean, there's no way that that they're not. With COVID finances, there's some things that we could potentially do, because it's obviously affecting us greatly, and it has to do with COVID and things of that fashion. How did you guys come to a $6 million land from the state? It seems like they would be more interested in helping than that. And I'm not trying to say who or what, because the state owns that, doesn't they? Don't they?
The specific dollar amounts, we're going to know a lot more once the appraisal's done. Our opportunity for the Governor Bowl site is a purchase. The state, that's been a pretty heavy lift at that. They have not expressed any interest in donating it for this purpose. They basically have advised that, hey, this is what CARES money is for. You guys got an allocation. So it's going to be a market value purchase, and the specific amount for land acquisition will fall out of the appraisal process. So it's kind of a guess at this point.
That seems rather strange. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I believe you that all that happened, but I think that sounds strange. So I still would be interested in pursuing a conversation, because I think it's weird for intergovernmental issues like this. I mean, part of their responsibility is to help as well as a state with mental health, finance. I mean, you name it, all that stuff. This is something that's important to them as well. And so as they look at that, for them to turn around and charge us $6 million for a piece of land so we can potentially try and do this, it's just strange. So anyway, I want to say that on the record out loud if anybody out there's listening. I think it's weird. Thank you.
Maybe they can help with the DMV site. I did want to address, Member Dare, your very good point about staffing and the challenges of staffing this overflow shelter. Volunteers of America have been working to hire additional staff with some success. It's very inefficient having these shelters spread out in multiple locations. In particular, at the CAC, there's multiple different rooms where people are sheltering in. That increases staffing needs. So it's going to be an ongoing challenge. We need all the help we can get to staff, both for identification and establishing the facility, but also for staffing the facility. It's an issue. Hopefully we can consolidate a little bit at the CAC if we get an overflow shelter and get some efficiencies there. But really, one site is the goal. We're just not there yet.
Thank you. And I do know that, Volunteers of America, they're doing such a great job right now with the multiple sites, because they do have the Record Street, they have the tents on 4th Street, and then they have the sort of shaded structure at the Governor's Bowl. And they're kind of bouncing, as best they can with their staffing for all of those. So you're absolutely right, Arlo. I think any opportunity to kind of consolidate in a larger location that serves more with less staff or the same amount of staff is far more efficient. So I appreciate that. And to Councilman Dare's point about the private sector, I know Susan Mastretti, she in the city of Reno, I'll send you her contact information. She has coordinations with a number of faith-based churches, and so she'd be a great contact for the assistance with the churches. And then putting it out in the universe, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, if any of those big organizations wanted to drop some dough on us, whether it's Apple or Tesla or Switch or Google, we wouldn't turn it away. Just saying, they could really help us with a significant issue. They step forward. So Elon Musk, calling out to you. Councilman Dare.
Just real quick on that, I know we throw it out there in the universe, but I think a lot of these businesses at large truly do care about our region. I mean, they're here. This is where their businesses. This is where their people work. This is it. I mean, if we put a plan together and we need to get out there and start doing some asks to help, I'm in, because I just, this is such an important thing. And I don't know if that's, I don't know how that works, or if how we do that best, or if we just put something out there to the world. I don't know, but I do think we might need to ask. I mean, this is their community, and if they're going to help continue to have a community that people want to move here and work, we have to be whole. And this is an area that we only can do so much. Part of the reason they moved here is because of the level of taxes everyone needs to pay. Part of our problem is the level of taxes everyone needs to pay. And so I think we need their help. So however I can help, I'm in.
Mayor Lawson.
So there, just along those lines, there's and I guess being a little long in the tooth in politics gives me some experience here, but we talked about this years and years ago. It's a program that started, I believe, in San Diego. It was about $1 Million Murray in the cost of the homeless population and all that. And the businesses got on board and they made great strides in that. So I think you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there. That's something that we could look at, for a long-term solution and getting the businesses involved. And I agree with Councilman Dare wholeheartedly. Is the attraction to move here is the low taxes. The thing once you get here is you expect the same services you paid when you had high taxes. So we have to make a plea to our legislators to eliminate negotiation, at least to help us out from the city standpoints, because for us, building homes is a loser after about 5 years. So anyways, that's my political statement for the day.
Member Delgado, you were just giving a thumbs up? He was just giving a
I was
thumbs
just giving
up.
a thumbs up, agreeing to the mayor's parts over there, so absolutely.
Double thumbs up from me too. Okay, Arlo, did you have anything else before we moved on?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, you have no public comment on this item.
Okay, are we already down to item 8?
You are already on to general closing public comment. Yes, because there was not action necessary on the previous 2 items unless Arlo is looking for specific direction, but I believe he's given his asks to the board.
Okay, so maybe this is for if there is an attorney on the line. I don't see on here where there are board recommendations or comments for a future agenda item. So is that something that we could be the public and comment on? Where would we fit that in? Or do we keep item 7 open? And
I'm not an attorney, however, I've moved Brian Studi over from City Attorney's Office. My recommendation, and then he can back me up or say otherwise, would be for the board to, if you have things you would like to address, public comment would be the legal place to put it. If you have future agenda item requests, you can also send those to the manager's office and they get agendized for future meetings.
okay, we should probably do that since we have asked the public to send their comments in by the Friday at 4. So I would recommend, if you guys have any items for the future agenda, to email those to you, Ashley. Is that what you said?
Sure, I can facilitate, yes.
Whether you will be the person that gets them. Let's just put it.
If not, I will be the one. Yes, I will make sure they get where they're going regardless.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to item 8, public comment. Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, this is for general closing public comment. It should be noted, as we did discuss at the beginning of the meeting, any items that are received after 4 p.m. prior to the business day before the meeting will be submitted into general closing public comment, which is what we will go over. As a reminder to the public, there are multiple ways in which you can submit public comment, either by leaving a voicemail to the phone number that is on the top of the agenda, by sending an email to my office, or by filling out our online public comment form. If those are received before 4 p.m., they are lodged in opening, public comment, or with their item. Anything received after 4 p.m. will go into closing. With that, Madam Chair, it should be noted, we received public comment from Laura Evans, who's concerned with homelessness and services. Linda contact being concerned about the condition along the back of the CAC. Sally Tate is concerned about enforcement in the current condition of Barbara Bennett Park. Don Houtling asked about permanent solutions and is concerned about the services that are being offered. And our last general closing public comment is from Jennifer Nelson, who is worried about homelessness increase valleys. Those have been submitted to the body and are part of the official public record.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
With that,
Okay, with that, we are on to adjournment. May I get a motion?
Move to approve adjournment.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? All right, everybody, we are adjourned. See you next month.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So can I just tell you for future agenda item,
let me,
or do I need to send it in writing?
yeah, what we'll do is, hold on.